Director of Legislative and Policy Affairs, Scott Nelson, Kathleen Cooper, Director of Communications and Animals. And they're here because if you have additional questions or want to pull them aside, go for it. I plan to give you a brief overview of our recent work and legislative priorities and leave time, I hope, for some questions. We appreciate the work that you do and the challenges facing journalists today, so reach out. We will always do our best to answer questions. It has been more than 2 years since we last met, and I don't have to tell you, it has been an eventful time. I provided a handout in the back, or on the side table there, and you'll see this, because I think it's instructive on what we do in the State Auditor's Office, the different kinds of audits that we do, the work that we do, and I'm going to talk about the future, but this gives you at least a look back at the number of audits that we've done since we last met, which is over 5,000 audits. I provided some, and considering our limited time, I want to share some information for your background, but today I'll focus on like I said, our current events. Our role as auditors, as you all know, is to provide that independent, objective set of eyes to review all of Washington's 2,300 local governments and state agencies. I've said many times, if you've met one state auditor, you've met one state auditor. We all do something a little bit different. We're probably most aligned with the state of Ohio, which is a bigger operation, but they do the same robust amount of work. As you can see, that means conducting a lot of audits. We publish about 2,500 audits a year. Most of our audits, just for your edification, are clean. And what we mean by that is that we don't find any significant issues. But when there are issues, it's our job to report them, of course. Especially in the most egregious cases, our state's news media, including newspapers, radio and television stations, and news websites actually play an important role in holding government accountable. Your reporting helps to move the needle on public awareness, which in turn holds elected officials accountable for resolving problems. And I'll give you a couple examples. In the Toppenish School District near Yakima, our accountability audit found the school board and the school district lacked oversight over disbursements and credit card payments. They did not follow state laws regarding contracts for their vice principal or superintendent. That included offering multiple raises without written agreements. In my view, and I'm a former school board member from many years ago, the Toppenish School District Board failed to hold the superintendent accountable for his spending and activities. And that is one of the most important duties of the school board. The Yakima Herald reported on our audit findings and on other issues in the school district, and I believe their coverage helped to play a significant role in prompting the school board to take more serious oversight actions. Another example is the success we've had in reducing the number of unauditable governments in Washington. In 2019, about 40 governments were failing to meet the basic accountability standards. We launched a campaign to highlight the issue of unauditable governments, mostly small special purpose districts that did not report their finances. News media reported on some of those districts. King 5, for example, reported on a Pierce County drainage district in 5 that had refused to cooperate with an audit by submitting its financial information. Shortly after that issue was published, the district came forward and submitted its financial reports. This is not without a lot of heavy lifting from us, but I think the public scrutiny helped. And we do a number of social media ways we try to communicate issues, but you have a better way of doing that many times than we do. And in 2020, we worked with legislators as they passed reforms to address these unauditable governments. Now, counties or the state treasurer may withhold funds from, as well as dissolve, those governments. That's an important move of the needle. This December, we reported identifying just 6 unauditable governments. These are successful efforts to ensure government accountability, and they included many independent actors committed to accountability. Our office, the legislature, local governments, and the news media. I have more to share with you today than old news, however. We do have priority requests for the state legislature this session. All of them focus on increasing government transparency and accountability. This fall, we published the first use of deadly force investigation audits. These audits are unique in the nation. They review the independent investigations into police use of deadly force to determine whether they followed state rules. They answer 4 basic questions about each investigation. Was it credible? Was it independent? Was it transparent? And was it communicated to the public and those affected people? We are reporting on the facts of investigations, not opining on whether the use of force was justified. In that way, we are providing valuable information to everyone who wants to see the system improve. That includes lawmakers, the affected families, and the law enforcement community as well. So far, we have published 7 UDFI reports, with 3 more on the way. However, because our mandate includes incidents dating back to 2020, there is a backlog of more than 100 cases to review. And unfortunately, that list continues to grow. We have added auditors to our UDFI program to help address that backlog. However, these audits depend on incident reports from independent investigation teams. Today, key information in those reports may be redacted before our auditors see it. A state agency requires legislative authorization for full access to that material. So we are asking the legislature to authorize our office to view the information. As auditors, we do not edit documentation provided to us. Redaction makes these audits take longer and reduces their overall transparency. The bill that passed the House is now under consideration in the Senate, and we are hopeful that we will get this bill adopted. It is just one example of our larger effort to increase transparency in government. Another priority for us this year is to increase funding for our performance audit programs. As you may recall, the voters authorized performance audits and created a fund to pay for them through Initiative 900. Over time, some of the money in the performance audits of government account has been diverted to other programs. In fact, there are proposals this year to divert some of that funding to state agencies to address their audit findings, like the Employment Security Department and the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. That implies the more issues our audits reveal, the less funds we will have for future audits. We are encouraging legislators not to set such a precedent. Our request this year would allow us to spend more of the performance audit money for its intended purposes, performance audits. You may be interested to know that in the last biennium, 60 local governments reported cybersecurity attacks that resulted in a substantial loss of public funds. We are asking for $2.9 million in additional funding authority to expand our capacity for cybersecurity performance audits. That additional funding would mean more assistance for local governments in cybersecurity. It would add up to 18 additional governments to our critical infrastructure cybersecurity work. And it will allow us to implement new programs intended to help governments, including those that have been targeted by cyber attacks. Our second request for $2.6 million funding authority would pay for additional performance audits. Our cybersecurity program is in high demand, so our traditional performance audits, for example, our recent performance audits that have revealed racial disparities and ballot rejection rates, and recommended ways to improve the customer service at the Employment Security Department, we would not be able to do. Our request would allow us to conduct 4 to 6 additional performance audits per biennium. The citizens' intent in creating the performance audits was to fund government through independent audits. We think these requests are reasonable and well within the existing funds. These are our priorities, and at this point we are cautiously optimistic that they will be approved by the legislature this session. So I'm going to stop there and allow you, if you have any questions for me, I or my trustee team will answer them.